Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Propagandacast Lehr with me, your host, Imperial Dane. Covering today Osttruppen opening, since there's a bit of a requested topic, and I suppose a bit more of a specific army opening within the Wehrmacht, and rather, one of the few you can sort of really say has any sort of, deeper flexibility. That is very much the Osttruppen openings. They have a few sort of styles, but overall this sort of, full up to some extent sort of flat style as previously discussed, disruption, and they're not really good. You can also pull off a sort of more standard opening with the Osttruppen that's a bit, rare at the moment. A lot of people just sort of tend to hit the field with as many Osttruppen as possible. And the general thing with that Osttruppen are, they're reasonably cheap for infantry, 200 manpower, 6 man, and in cover they perform reasonably well about as any other infantry sort of line scored. And of course that's rather the trick about them. They're cheap, sort of get cheap to enforce, and they can be used to sort of hold down a unit. And most players will pretty much tend to play like that. So using them, you can sort of quickly grab some territory. Again, you don't have to say build a building. Initially, that's more resource for quickly hitting the field with more Osttruppen. You can get some men to support them. Some players will get support weapons for them, others will not. But generally, players most tend to get them because, again, they can sort of, at a lower cost, take on even stuff like rifle. And again, under the right circumstance, again, the thing to keep in mind, though, is they are easier to hit than other infantry, and out in the open, for example, while attacking and so on, they're pretty much, not very good. Which means holding to their flank, combat effectiveness drops sharply as well. But again, most players then sort of try to play them in a manner where this doesn't happen. We can sort of keep those things in mind already there. You already got sort of clues as how to deal with Osttruppen. Of course, another thing Osttruppen sort of tend to fail towards is more elite infantry and also heavily equipped infantry, in which case, for example, BARs, Bren guns, submachine guns, the Osttruppen will fall apart. But overall, basically one of the things people like to do is basically get some Osttruppen, and that way, save some manpower, and then more quickly hit to then get out scout cars, maybe panzer grenadiers, particularly if opponent actually upgrades his infantry, get some better troops. You will need panzer grenadiers to really carry the fight. Of course, you could go for the infantry company and grenadiers, but then you're rather sort of falling a bit behind there. And overall, I think panzer grenadiers works a bit better. You can, of course, also support with the officer. He has some quite useful abilities, but again, most people tend to, how should I put this, neglect it. So that is, less good. But overall, the Osttruppen sort of opening, so again, relies on your opponent, so just attacking the Osttruppen head on, you using them sort of in strategic position, sort of hold up the enemy, bottle him down while you bring up better units or support weapons, and otherwise, just bleed him out if you can at a overall more cost efficient sort of rate. But again, keep in mind, if they're on the wrong side of the card, while they might still get the attack bonus, in terms of what kind of damage they'll take, they'll be suffering a lot more. Again, they are very easy to hit, and again, that's what some players tend to forget. But again, use them, you can quickly grab a lot of territory, defend it, slowly give ground, but again, bleeding out your opponent at a more favourable rate. And of course, bring up more stuff like support weapons. Some players will also throw in snipers to sort of bleed out the opponent that way. Bit more tricky, but it can work if you sort of got the skills for it. But again, the general trick with it is, again, you don't want to stick around in tier 1 for too long. You want to bring up bigger stuff. Some players, for example, like to go for a few Osttruppen and then say rush out scout cars. So that way, try and throw the opponent off with a bit more aggression. Others like to go quick for a flame for a half track. Of course, another thing to keep in mind, if you don't go for the infantry company, you won't have a Panzerfaust. Of course, that's sort of the image to keep in mind. You can try and be more aggressive, perhaps try and bait your opponent so really has Panzerfaust or not. And if he does, get really aggressive with vehicles and that way punish him. Though, of course, you have to be not bit careful. Of course, you need to quickly just build the infantry company and then Panzerfaust you, in a very unpleasant spot. So those are some things to keep in mind there. But generally, most Osttruppen openings tend to work towards a quick light to make a nice company and then follow up with the units there. Again, most popular tends to be scout cars, but half tracks do work since you won't be shooting as much munitions. You will have more quick access there to the flame for a half track. That is very popular for some. And of course, Panzer going to sort of really carry on the bigger infantry fight as the game progresses is not a bad idea. And again, as mentioned, counters include just getting weapons for your men, since overall that way they can threaten the Osttruppen more. Machine guns also work since the Osttruppen again sort of can't quite fight them as well. Again, they risk getting suppressed, and if they sort of get caught in the wrong position, they're in a pretty bad position on top of that. Plus, for example, they can't clear them out very quickly. They don't have access to rifle grenades or any other grenade, which again limits what they can do versus them. So in that sense, Vickers machine guns with the Brits is probably one of your better bets, but otherwise, bolstering sections or quickly taking out for some other units does work out nicely. But overall, one of the tricks is sort of playing against the Osttruppen opening is to sort of try, not get bogged down. Try to play around. You want the Osttruppen to attack you because then they're quite at a disadvantage. Try to play around them and try to avoid spots. It can sometimes be difficult because your opponent will try and get up, in very important spots, but you're going to have to sort of try and I'll play that, of course, get some bigger guns up to that way, deal with them. You're just sort of, finding out a cover with them. You're generally falling to the Osttruppen opening's advantage, which is what you want to avoid. But overall, that again, Osttruppen openings, a bit of a sort of particular thing there. They have their advantages, they have their disadvantages. If you try to, again, avoid the advantages, you can usually beat it reasonably handily. So, of course, you got to keep in mind your opponent can sort of quickly have thrown a few other, well, spanners in the works if he wants to, and of course you have to keep in mind what he might be playing for. I mean, again, it could be Scout Cars, it could be Pentagonist, it could be Flamethrower Half Checks. Either way, it's not an entirely bad idea to prepare for enemy armor. So field guns, bazookas, P-8s, anti-tank guns, Scout Cars, what they can bring, is not necessarily a bad thing to have either. Mines, of course, also work out nicely. Of course, not much versus the Osttruppen, and of course, snipers versus the Osttruppen, not so grand either. But again, Osttruppen is very much about, again, just trying to press an advantage against your opponent quickly, grab as much territory, slowly bleed him out at a sort of cost-effective ratio, and sort of trying to take up and then hit him with more advanced units. You'll also probably see a faster tier 3 with these kind of openings, in particular if the bear-marked opponent can control the fuel points much more nicely. It does work out better. Throwing in mines doesn't hurt either, because again, if you're relying on the Osttruppen, I mean, again, you probably won't be spending much munitions on anything, which again does open up for more mines. So again, if you are facing an Osttruppen opening, minesweepers doesn't hurt either. But again, for example, if you are using an Osttruppen opening, combining it with mines isn't a bad idea either. But you want to try and keep up momentum, you want to try and tech up, you don't want to get bogged down either. Again, you can sort of get away with it, but not forever. In particular, not if your opponent upgrades infantry. And again, those are the things you have to be watchful for. But again, use cover, try to play clever, always try to just stall him, bleed him out. If he's trying to outflank you, sort of try to pull back to a better position. And usually an MD-42 to sort of support is not a bad idea unless you're really rapidly taking forward sort of very quickly. But as again, fast taking is one of the sort of, key elements of the Osttruppen opening, and again, just trying to grab as much territory as possible, not recklessly so, of course, being ready to sort of fight over more vital points, as much as advantageously as you can, which of course can be tricky for the more novice players. But again, sticking to cover, and of course ensuring they attack you head on when you're on cover is generally sort of what you're looking for. And you don't want to attack too much, you don't want to be coming at them through here and sort of get caught out in the open, because that way your Osttruppen will quickly be cut down. But again, tech tempo is sort of, I think, one of the hallmarks of the Osttruppen openings, to sort of get it really working, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, you will end up not doing too well with it. I mean, you want to pressure the opponent as quickly as possible. Again, that involves to some extent skipping the infantry company. And again, some players can catch it there. Of course, you can sort of try and catch them back with having it there, sort of back-taking into it. Because later on, then having a lot of Panzerfaust to support, say, your armor is not too bad either. But overall, it depends on the situation, what your opponent you're kind of facing, and what sort of moves you're thinking is actually making against you. So, I mean, there's all these kinds of mind games and strategy going on. But again, if you are going for Osttruppen opening, again, I've sort of, already sort of laid out the basic details. Hit the field quickly, get as much as you can in territory, follow up machine guns, take up quickly, scout cars, Panzergrenadiers, Flampanzerwagen, depending on your resources. And otherwise, throwing in some Panzergrenadiers as the game moves on, as your Osttruppen basically become outmatched. If your opponent actually upgrades, is overall a good idea. And otherwise, again, quickly hit tier 3. I mean, you can play for tier 4, but for an Osttruppen opening, I wouldn't recommend it. Not unless you actually got some armor up from tier 3 first. So obviously that's not so much, though. Unless you've got a massive advantage over your opponent, you can work it. So I think that rather covers Osttruppen opening sort of generally how to fight them and how to use them. If you sort of keep those details in mind, you should overall be quite well equipped to use Osttruppen openings, but also to fight against them. And again, the trick is, again, basically how Osttruppen operate. And again, they have decent cover, and the advantage again is they can trade very nicely with your opponent's infantry, in particular for the Americans and the British. They trade very nicely, unless of course the opponent's infantry upgrade. You want to that way catch them out of position, flank them, and of course that way deal with them very quickly. You don't want to be shooting out with the Osttruppen. Again, if you shoot out with Osttruppen, you're fighting to your opponent's advantage. And again, as the Osttruppen player, you want to fight that way until you can bring up better equipment. Using MD-42 to support your Osttruppen, by the way, is not a bad idea at all. So that rather covers it. Again, you're hopefully better equipped now. If you are, feel free to subscribe, tell your friends, like the video. Everyone that likes, of course, means more might actually see down the line. And of course, I'll be working on more Propagandacast Lehr videos, in particular now with the Overcommand of S tier getting a bit of an overhaul. And of course, I'll be working on more opening videos down the line as well. So hopefully, again, this has been of help. Hopefully, there's been of enjoyment. And if it did, subscribe and like. This is Imperial Link. Cheers, and hope to see you all another time. Bye.